Nobody knew the exact moment humanity vanished. On a morning that should have been like any other, every human presence across 100 worlds, in every outpost, aboard every starship, simply faded from the universe's sensors. No message. No warning. Not even a sound. For the Galactic Council, it was an inconvenience at first. Human embassies stood empty, their cities silent. The comms channels they dominated now returned only static. Most counselors shrugged, convinced it was some new Terran trick or a collective tantrum. Let them sulk, the Vakari delegates sneered. Life would go on, but life did not go on. Not as it had in the days that followed. Cracks appeared everywhere. Vast trade routes that depended on human navigation broke down. Ancient jump gates, maintained by human engineers, sputtered and died. Medical supply chains faltered as Earth's biotech shipments failed to arrive. Even simple things, power grids, water purifiers, food synthesizers began to fail on worlds where humans had worked quietly behind the scenes, making things run while others took the credit. It should have been manageable. The Council had seen empires rise and fall, but never before had one species been so quietly, invisibly essential. That first week, the Council issued statements. Temporary disruptions. Our teams are addressing the situation. Secretly, panic crept in. Ambassadors were recalled, military units mobilized. But everywhere they looked, there was only the echo of humanity's absence, a vacuum that grew with every passing hour. On the world of Corvallis, a storm raged outside the Council headquarters. Inside, silence hung heavy. High Chancellor Vaethra, whose own species owed their entire digital infrastructure to human ingenuity, stared at the hollow feeds, face grim. Delegates from a dozen races argued, voices sharp with fear. Perhaps this is their idea of a joke, snapped the Siluran representative. Humans have always enjoyed their dramas. No, replied the Durelian ambassador quietly. This is no joke. My planet's orbital platforms have begun failing. There are systems only the Terrans understood. They never bothered to teach us. A grim consensus began to form. Something catastrophic had happened. The humans were not hiding. They were simply gone. On a distant mining moon, an old human maintenance bot replayed its last recorded message endlessly in the dark. Don't worry, kid. We'll be back soon. By the end of the week, the Council could no longer pretend. They broadcast a universal call to the people of Earth. If you are out there, return. We are willing to renegotiate. But space returned only silence. As the weeks dragged on, the cracks widened. Food riots broke out on wealthy core worlds that once mocked primitive human agriculture. Energy shortages forced entire planets into darkness. Pirate bands long kept in check by human-led patrols now preyed on trade routes unchecked. In council chambers, fear became accusation. This is sabotage, shouted the Vakari. No species could be this essential unless they planned it. Others, like the insectoid Vree, whispered that perhaps humanity had always been a threat. They told us again and again, treat others as you wish to be treated, and we ignored every warning. But not all species panicked. Some, like young diplomat Zira from the gentle Kithari, remembered her years on Earth. She'd watched how Terrans, even when insulted, kept building, healing, teaching. They had always warned the Council, do not push too far, or there will be consequences. Now, in their absence, Zira saw the pattern. This was not sabotage. This was a final lesson. Far from the core, on a small colony, a single Terran AI woke, up programmed to respond only to catastrophic failure. Its message was stark, and it played across the void. We asked you to build together. You chose to exploit. Now learn what it means to lose us. The message repeated on every abandoned Terran outpost, every satellite, every deep space relay. The Council tried to jam the signal, but it was hardwired into the infrastructure. Panic spread. Worlds that once depended on human engineers for water, medicine, power, or even law and order now faced collapse. In desperation, the Council's military arm voted to invade Earth, to force a response. The Armada massed at the Sol jump gate. But when they arrived, the gate was dead. The solar system's edge shimmered with a barrier one of human design. Every warship's computer simply shut down. "We warned you," the AI said, now. On every ship's emergency feed, no more warnings. Only consequences. The Armada drifted, powerless. Frantic calls for help went unanswered. Their own fleets across the galaxy found themselves locked out, systems crashing. Not a single shot had been fired. Humanity had simply turned off the universe's lights. Panic turned to terror as entire planets experienced rolling blackouts. Food shortages, lawless chaos. In the Council chamber, blame erupted into violence. Representatives stormed out, alliances shattered. Vathor's own world, reliant on Terran nanomedicine, saw millions fall sick overnight. Even the most powerful races, who thought themselves above human aid, realized how wrong they'd been. Amidst this chaos, a handful of worlds tried to adapt. The Cathari sent envoys to Terran allies, begging for scraps of knowledge, pleading for instruction manuals, anything to keep their worlds running. On an isolated moon, Zira broadcast a plea. "If any human can hear this, we are sorry. Please come back. Teach us. We were arrogant. We need you." All she received was silence. In the empty darkness of the old Terran embassy, a human child's drawing crude, but sincere, remained taped to the wall. "Friends forever, even if you're mean sometimes." The words haunted every counselor. Regret set in. They'd driven away the only species that had ever truly tried to help. But regret could not undo the collapse. In city after city, riots burned. On the war-torn streets, ancient legends spread humans could not be truly gone. Somewhere, somehow, they'd return. The galaxy watched, terrified and hopeful, as the consequences mounted. As the galaxy unraveled, survivors clung to fragments of hope. On the Cathari homeworld, Zyra became a symbol of desperation and humility. She led teams into old Terran teaching halls, searching dusty archives, replaying any lessons she could find. With every faded hologram, she realized how much humanity had shared, how the smallest Terran insights had prevented catastrophe for centuries. Meanwhile, chaos deepened. The pirates that once quaked before Terran fleets now ruled unchecked. Star systems that relied on Terran peacekeepers were torn apart by warlords and crime syndicates. Whole planets slipped back into lawless ages, and the Council's proud ideals were exposed as hollow. On the Council's shattered floor, Chancellor Vathra faced the truth. "We never ruled this galaxy. We just basked in the light humans gave. U.S. everywhere. Hidden infrastructure failed. The Council's own defense network, quietly designed and updated by Terran engineers, fell to cybertechs, automated viruses, and silent errors. Distant colonies were lost to disease, famine, or violence. The web of civilization unraveled, thread by thread, all because they'd never listened. But the galaxy's suffering wasn't without witnesses. On the fringes, in an abandoned Terran listening post, an old caretaker bot awoke. It analyzed distrust signals and began transmitting a single phrase across deep space. "You were warned. Now you learn." Panic became grief. Worlds that once mocked humanity now held public memorials. For lost Terran friends, statues were built. Apologies broadcast into empty space. On the streets, people whispered ancient Terran stories, how they'd helped, healed, and sacrificed. Still, not a single human returned. Not a single message came back. As the cycle of collapse and regret deepened, legends spread among the young. If you want humans to return, you must change. Only the worthy will ever see them again. But no one knew what being worthy meant. Not yet. Months passed. On a cold outpost, Zira huddled by a dying fusion core, staring at the fading Terran manuals, searching for answers. Every night she replayed old recordings, humans teaching children, repairing machines, helping strangers. She saw their flaws, but also their relentless kindness. A breakthrough came from an unexpected source. The Vri, once the loudest critics of humanity, found a cache of Terran agricultural data lessons on food resilience, sustainability, and sharing. For the first time, instead of hoarding secrets, they shared the knowledge openly, teaching their neighbors as humans once had. Inspired, worlds began helping each other in ways they'd never tried before. Rival races offered aid, exchanged expertise, formed rescue fleets without demanding payment or recognition. Counselor Vaithra, humbled and hollow-eyed, coordinated a network of planetary support, desperate to keep civilization alive. Meanwhile, the pirates who thrived in chaos faced their own reckoning. On the outlaw station of Lygos Rift, an ancient Terran security program activated a last gift from humanity. Without violence, it shut down the pirates' entire network, disabling their ships, exposing their crimes to every world. Suddenly, the galaxy saw just how much the Terrans had protected them from the shadows. For the first time, hope flickered. As societies worked together, small lights returned. Zira's planet restored its first Terran water purifier. The Vri rebuilt a hospital. Little by little, the galaxy clawed back from the abyss, learning. At last, the lesson humanity had tried to teach. True strength comes from cooperation, humility, and care for the weakest. But above every fragile victory, the silence of humanity remained absolute. And in the darkness, something old and hungry watched, an ancient threat Terrans had kept at bay, now stirring in their absence. It began on the rimworlds. Shadow fleets, nightmarish things once kept far from civilized space by Terran patrols, surged into the vacuum. The first worlds fell quickly, defenses powerless, their old human allies gone. Desperate, Zira broadcast a plea into the void, her voice breaking. If any human can hear us, we understand now. We're sorry. Please, help us. We'll do anything. But no reply came. The shadow fleets advanced, consuming system after system. Counselor Vaithra and the remaining council scrambled to organize a defense. Old rivals stood together, pooling what little the Terrans had left behind. They found human weapons sealed away with notes. Use only if you defend, never to conquer. With trembling hands, they unlocked these armories, standing together. On the ramparts of a burning galaxy. Everywhere, citizens fought not for power, but for each other. The Kithari, the Vri, even the proud Varkari races once divided by pride stood side by side, wielding Terran tools, following Terran teachings. Still, it was not enough. The shadow fleets were relentless. Entire worlds burned. At the darkest hour, a new signal crackled through the chaos, a simple, ancient melody. Few recognized it at first, but Zira wept as she heard it. The old human song, sung at moments of hope and mourning. Stars blinked on the edges of the galaxy ships unknown, bearing markings none had seen in months. A single message pulsed across every channel. You have changed. Now we return. From the void, Terran ships reappeared, sleek, silent, unstoppable. Where the shadow fleets advanced, the Terrans cut through, restoring peace with impossible speed. Every world watched in awe as humanity returned, not as conquerors, but as guardians, offering aid only to those who had truly learned. Zira stood in the battered council chamber, as the first human envoy walked in. His uniform worn, eyes tired but kind. No grand speeches, just a simple handshake, an embrace, and the words, "We warned you because we cared. Now you know what you almost lost. Will you stand with us not beneath, not above, but together?" Across the galaxy, the new lesson spread. Those who once ruled with pride now led with humility. Worlds rebuilt, not in humanity's image, but with their guidance side by side. The Council, forever changed, became what it was always meant to be, a true union, not of power, but of cooperation. And humanity, having given the greatest warning of all, faded back into the fabric of the galaxy, always present, always watching, always ready to help those who chose to listen. As peace returned, Zira visited the Terran embassy, where that old child's drawing still hung. "Friends forever, even if you're mean sometimes." She smiled, wiping away a tear. This time, the words meant everything. And in that silence, there was not loss, but hope, a galaxy reborn, with no more warnings. Only the bright, lasting consequences of unity.